Welcome back to the Miles Ahead podcast. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Heath.
And today we are talking about kind of work-life balance, how to train for what we do. Heath works an ungodly amount of hours a week, and how we do that, manage our relationship, and also we had a fun little group run this morning.
We did. It was an awesome time. We went down to Brady's Run, where the Visit Beaver County Rabbit Raccoon 100, hosted by Wolf Creek Race Management,
is held.
Yeah.
I mean, Heath did try to kill us on the way in because it was really icy, and he just was like on the phone to one of his buddies, and we were just slipping, and he had one hand on the wheel, and I was like, this is it, this is the end. Actually, I couldn't tell we were slipping a ton. I was like, oh, we're not on the road. There goes my chance at a nap. But we were okay. We pulled over. I took control of the car.
Yeah.
And we made it there in one piece.
My buddy Kenny was on the way to the group run. He called me. He's like, hey, like, be careful. Like, the roads are super icy. And I'm like, oh, like, we've been on the main roads. Hasn't been bad at all. We're just getting out of Salem, Ohio, and going down this huge hill. And start slipping for like 20 seconds straight. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
The timing was crazy.
Oh my gosh, it was impeccable timing, but we survived.
Poor Kenny was probably like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So yeah, we did. I mean, I did one full lap and then like an abbreviated lap. You did 2 full laps, so that's 24. I think it ended up being like 25 to avoid the creek though, right?
Well, it's a 12.5 mile
loop. It is
12.5
mile loop, but with the way we went, to avoid the creek and then go up the road.
Yeah, well, it added mileage, if anything.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, we had a fun little run there.
Yeah, it was awesome. There was like 12 people that showed up total, including Olivia and I, so
yeah.
It was cool. It's kind of like a little course preview for the people who haven't ran it, but a lot of the people had ran it last year and are running again, which is awesome. Cool little race hosted by Wolf Creek, who are my sponsor, so I'm going to be honest about that. Yeah, plug.
That was funny. We like showed up and pulled in, and I was like, no way all these people are here to run. And Heath was like, it's 7:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning at an ice rink. I have a feeling they might be.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys there to play hockey, but
Two.
For the most part.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of runners.
I'd like set it in the podcast and then post on Strava and then on my like Instagram story, and then Wolf Creek took upon themselves to like post like a thing on their page like, oh hey Heath, go run with Heath, and like this whole like big dramatic thing, and I was like, oh okay, like, we're doing that then. But yeah, it was awesome to have everyone out there and get to meet some new people and just run the course, get some miles in on it. Remember what it's like.
Yeah, you gave me 0 insights on the race, which was rude. That was promised in the flyer, and you did not deliver.
Next time. You're not running the race, so you don't get any insights.
Fair.
I think you're the only person there that isn't running the race.
That's fair. Everybody was like, are you running? I was like, no, I've done this enough.
Yeah.
Doing this loop again is more than I would ever want to do, so.
I zone out so much during races. There was many times during the loop, I'm like, I don't remember this at all, even though I went by 8 times during the 100-miler last year. And there was like a bunch of rocks in this one section, and me and this other guy who both ran the 100 last year were convinced that those big rocks were not on the trail, but they were in fact.
That's funny. But yeah, it was funny because Heath kept being like, do you remember this part of the course? And I was like, yeah. I was out here for a bit longer than you. I sadly remember every rock and tree and hill and other rock.
You were taking it all in.
I was.
You're getting your money's worth being out there longer.
Yeah, I did get my money's worth. I was talking to one guy. He was like, it's just like I could sign up for like a half marathon for $200, or I could sign up for 100K for $200. And I was like, exactly. Get the more miles, the more bang for your buck. And he was like, you know what, you're right. And I was like, I do what I can. Because I'm always like, why would I do a 25K for $50 and a 50K for $55? Like, obviously, I'm just going to do the 50K for $55.
The money maths.
The money does math, more time, more snacks, more experience out on the trail. So that was a fun time. But running the course again did make some memories come to mind of all of the suffering that occurred out on the loops for me. I don't know if it did for you, but
it was just kind of the going down the hill parts. I'm like, I remember how painful it was to go down the hills because my shins were killing me.
Yeah. And it was very icy, so
Very icy today.
so many of the guys just ate it, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how I didn't. I was really impressed with myself. I was moving at a snail's pace down most of the descents, but like by the time I was doing the second loop, it was just like there was so much snow had already fallen. I mean, not so much, but it was dusted. I was like, I don't know if this is ice or snow.
Mm.
I'm just gonna err on the side of caution, run through lots of leaves.
The slickest thing for me was if you stepped on a root or a log.
Yes.
They were so
Yeah.
slippery for no reason. I fell once and it was very gracefully. Like,
Oh,
I
good
kind of like caught
job.
myself in my hand and like sprawled out. It was
Okay.
didn't get hurt, so
Bummer I
that's
missed
nice.
that.
Yeah.
I'm more bummed I missed Carlo's fall. Because he had snow like somehow on his hoodie and he was like moving so slow. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Pray for Carlo.
Yeah, literally. Um, but yeah, can you think of any fun memories you had out on the course? Or maybe not so fun memories?
During the one part, there's a aid station that's like mile 2 and mile 8.5. And then after that, there's 4 miles, and those last 4 miles or 4.5 miles
Yeah.
are super hilly. That's where a lot of the elevation on the course actually is. And I remember Andrew and the other owner of Wolf Creek. They were on like a gator type thing, like all terrain vehicle, and they had a cowbell. And like the one lap, they were following me for like a mile and a half, just ringing the cowbell, just driving on the trail. And it brought back that memory because I'd kind of forgot about that.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'd be like,
that was like
thanks.
70 or 80 miles.
I'd be like, listen, if we were like 50 miles in, I might be more excited to see you here. But like, please let me just suffer through these last 20 to 30 miles.
Yeah,
They
that's why the one
probably
time you mentioned you're like, oh, I'm gonna bring a cowbell to like the aid station. I said, no, 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 you're not.
They're so fun though. I think we have some of the cowbells from Rabbit Raccoon last year. They had a whole bunch of extras at the end last year.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think I have some. I think Maitland has some.
that's cool.
Yeah. So, they'll make an appearance at some point. But I was thinking about, well, the one section that was super incredibly muddy was still muddy.
By the lake.
That part also muddy.
Oh, the
but
top
the
of the
super
ascend.
muddy
Like,
during the last 4 miles was still so muddy. I was like, I wonder if we missed that part. And I was like, oh no, it's right here. This is the same spot. I was like, oh good, the little like trail to the side through the briars is still around. Still going strong, still to avoid the mud.
that's something to definitely account for if you're doing a trail race that is loops
Mm-hmm.
and the trail gets muddy at all. Hey, like those last couple loops or that last loop is going to be 10
Very
times
muddy.
muddier because there's a lot of people going through it a lot of times.
Yeah. That's what I kept thinking when like the half marathoners were gonna start and the midnight half marathoners were gonna start. I was like, it's not gonna get better. And then after the rain, I was like, well, it's really not gonna get better. That's okay. So, but going through the mud, I was like, oh yeah, Maitland brought the hair dryer from the hotel room to dry off my shoes and in like the soles of my
Oh,
shoes in between laps because I kept switching my shoes every lap because they would get soaked. And so she's got a picture of her just like drying out the poor soles of my shoes. She was like, Olivia, the things I do for you. And I was like, thank you.
and it's also things that you don't realize that your crew's doing until
Yeah.
after the race, and then you find out about it, and you're like, oh.
I think she like told me at some point during, she was like, we ran back to the hotel and got the hairdryer. And I was like, nice. That's probably a good call.
It reminds me of whenever Seth played like travel soccer when we were younger. Like we had like a tournament this one time, and it was super rainy. And in between every game, we'd just go to the truck and sit in the truck and just be blowing uh, the heater or
Yeah.
trying to dry everything between the matches. Good times.
So yeah, and then I like went in to change afterwards and I was like, oh yeah, the showers in here are really short. Like I'm already really short, but the showers are really short because after the race, I took a shower and was like, Hannah, pass me shampoo. Can you pass me conditioner? I was like, I am trying to get as undemuddied whatever as possible right now. I'm over being muddy. I was over being wet though too, but I was like, I'm gonna be freezing the entire drive back if I don't like shower off and actually get dry. So, fun times.
Yeah.
And then sadly, we didn't get to go across the creek to be at the spot where I laid eyes on Heath for the first time ever. That was a kind of a bummer because the creek was too high.
Sad. But next weekend on Saturday, we're going to go and just do a run together. No idea what time. We'll probably sleep in some.
Please.
But we're going to actually go down. We're going to make it a point to go down to that spot.
It was romantic. Funny because I was just going to have you, like, piggyback me through the creek.
I was thinking I was going to do that. Yeah. But I had pants on, so, like, it wasn't, like...
That seems like a problem.
It was a me problem. And they're, like, athletic pants. They weren't, like, leggings.
It would have been heavy,
so,
yeah. It would have froze, though, so that could have been cool. No, it would have been awful, actually.
It would have been cool in a sense if it was cold, yeah.
So, yeah, fun times. Going through the mile 2 and mile 8.68 station, I was like, oh, yeah, shout out to that trail sister that pulled some caffeinated tea out of her purse and made me some tea at, I don't even know, I think I had like 8 miles to go, and I was like, I need some caffeine, please. And she was like, the coffee's gone, but I got some tea. Will you drink that? And I was like, yes, I will.
Shout out to everyone who volunteers at aid stations in races. That's something I've never done before. Eventually, I'm sure we'll do it together. It'll be a good time at some race or something. But yeah, especially the ones that are out there like all night and stuff. Like a lot of the shifts are long
and like it was the same ladies all day and night. Like the same people the entire time.
Really?
Yeah, I saw like the same 3 ladies. I was like, I've been on here for a long time. You've been on here for a long time. I hope maybe you sleep in between the times I'm seeing you, but like maybe
taking
not.
Naps.
Yeah. So crazy times.
Yeah, I remember too. Like the start, and then you go through it every loop of the race is in that like ice rink rec center thing, and just very cool atmosphere. Just running through that, and like there just being so many people there from like the relay and like everything, them playing music and stuff. It's like a nice little pick me up.
Yeah.
Each lap.
Yeah, it was nice to definitely go inside and like get out of the rain when it was raining and like have a place inside that was not.
It literally didn't rain during the race.
It literally rained during my race. I'm sorry.
Fair.
It did in fact rain during my race. So yeah, but good times were had, you know, some traumatic memories were brought up, but you know, that's, you live and you learn.
Yeah.
So, our topic today.
Yeah, balancing work, life.
Love,
running.
Yeah.
The peace. Love for running sometimes.
Peace, love, running.
Yeah. And Olivia said earlier that I work an ungodly amount of hours. I really don't. I work 50 hours a week. Like, I work 7 to 5, Monday through Friday usually. Work like 1 weekend day a month and then have a day off that week. But not as many as a lot of people work. And it's not like we have kids or anything, so like after I get off, it's like, oh, just running or doing things that we want to do, which is nice. I know a lot of people balance all this and all their training with having kids, which is an unbelievable thing to be able to balance all those things. Like, I fully accept, like, when we have kids, like, it's going to change the dynamic of running and stuff. Like, it's a lot more to do.
Stroller runs.
Stroller runs, yeah, that's something you can do, but like, still, that's another thing you have to prep for and like prepare for. You can't just put shoes on and go out the door. You gotta bundle the little kid up or, I don't know, dress him or something. And figure out that out in many years.
Yeah, that's true. But like, still, regardless, I would say out of the pool of people that I know or am close friends with, 50 hours is more than most people work. So I feel like to be able to get 10 miles in every day. I mean, I guess you get the 5 in at work, which is nice during your lunch.
They don't work at least 80 hours a week. They got soft hands. But yeah, and it's not weird to me. Like, that seems like a lot of hours to Olivia, but literally since I graduated high school, I was working at least 4 nights a week at Walmart for 32 hours. Then I was working at Burger King too. And then when I went back to college, I was doing that and going to college part-time. And then whenever I quit my job at Burger King, I was still working 4 or 5 nights a week at Walmart and going to school. And then 2 years later, I became a salary manager at Walmart, and I've been working 50 hours at least ever since. Yeah. And then a lot of that time having schoolwork on top of that. So 50 hours doesn't seem like a lot because I'm just so used to it by now. And 50, quote unquote, because like I have an hour lunch in there, which my cheat code is I get 5 miles in running every day on that. And that makes it a lot easier to get 10 miles a day because then I only need to do 5 after work.
Yeah. But what would you say, like, if you could describe a typical schedule of your day, like from the morning to when you go to bed, what does it look like?
Wake up 6:15, shower, use the restroom, brush my teeth, get ready for work. Usually eat on the way to work. Usually have something made. Uh, Go to work. Take lunch around like noon 30.
I love noon 30.
Yeah, change, run real quick, come back, change again, clean off a little bit. Work ends at 5, drive home. 5:30 or 6, run. Start running, run 5 to 10 miles. Then we either lift or go climb or just chill.
Yeah.
And
Have
then go to
dinner.
sleep at like 10:30. Have dinner, yeah.
We usually have dinner between 8:30 and 9:45.
Yeah. My schedule's very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday we go and get Mexican.
Yeah, that's very
We
exciting for
climb
us.
at least once a week on a daytime week.
Yeah. Daytime weekday, I think is
Weekday.
the word you're
Weekday would
looking
be
for
the
there.
correct word, yeah.
Yeah, usually on Wednesdays, but that Thursday crowd is
Lighter.
a lot lighter. A lot more climbing can be done
Change of
there.
pace.
Change of pace for sure, yeah. So, would you say that when you first got into running, like, did it feel like a lot to get all of your miles in, or, and like in previous relationships, did you always feel like it was, I don't know, more difficult to get your miles in, or?
Yeah, it always seemed like a burden almost. Like if I had to go run, it's like
Yeah.
it was just a day we were chilling or whatever. So with you, that's a very good change of pace of, hey, we're either running together or you completely understand because you run
Yeah.
a lot of miles as well. How about you?
Which part?
Like in other relationships.
I feel like, I mean, I taught for 3 years. I feel like, well, I also wasn't this serious into running.
Mm.
Like, I'm definitely running more miles now than I ever have. Like, I would do like 6 to 8 a day, probably. I would always, like, take a day off, though. Like, every week, I would take at least one day off and do whatever. I feel like I never really, well, because of the times that I was running, especially when I was working remotely, like, it didn't necessarily matter that I was running if I was in a relationship too. Like, I just kind of did that probably during the day sometime, during the morning sometime. Sweet gig. Because, like, when I got the remote job was more of when I started to ramp up my running. Like, when I was still teaching, um, I was running. I did the 100K while I was teaching and stuff like that, but it was definitely a lot less. Like, I think most of my weeks were like almost 50.
Yeah.
But like a lot less consistent. So.
And like you're saying with like the remote jobs, like this is why like people think people who work remote jobs aren't as productive as
Yeah,
people that actually
no.
go into the office. Which, hey, if you can get paid the same and work a remote job and not be working the majority of the time or whatever and still get your work done, like hats off to you. That's
Yeah.
awesome you get to do that. But
It was just like weird because I never had like a scheduled lunch or anything like that. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I can just go run now on my lunch. Like nobody ever like clarified that for me. So, and I like asked a couple of my like coworkers and they're like, do what you gotta do. I was like, okay, sounds good.
no, that's fair. If you didn't allude to it being your lunch, you're just like,
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
running whenever I want.
Well,
Like,
yeah, it was just like a very open-ended job. So, there was a lot of freedom.
that's cool.
So, very nice.
How about now with you working actual physical location jobs? How do you balance your running and that?
I feel like it's always hard to complain when I work substantially less hours than Heath. I mean, during the like fall, I did a lot of doubles. Like when I was solely substitute teaching, I could usually, depending on where I was at, get a couple miles in on my lunch there, which was nice, and then just run the rest after work. But like usually, depending on the day, I don't know. I usually get up around 6 ish, go make breakfast for Heath and I. Sometimes I'm running in the morning now, sometimes I'm not. Work until 3 to 4, come back, put dinner in the crock pot or prep dinner, and then go run or go climb, and then reverse. Go run or go climb. Or go lift now, you know. We've added that in. Or at least I've added that back into my life, so. That's been a fun time. We probably sprinkle some Brawl Stars in there at some point.
We do.
You know, maybe if we have a lot of free time in Game of Everdell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it, though. Like, it seems like everything's very segmented. Hey, this is what I do, this is what I do. Like, not much change, but, like, I kind of like that structure.
I do like the structure of, like, I know exactly what I'm going to be doing basically every day.
Yeah.
So.
And I was talking to a buddy the other day, and we were talking about, like, he has his own, like, business that he runs, and, like, he has a hard time structuring things and getting stuff done, like, procrastinating, and I would be the same way if I was my own boss and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, on the weekends, I'm not very structured, and I don't get a lot done because of that. So that's why I don't, like, mind my job. Like, even though it's 10 hours a day, like, I feel like I'm very productive on the days that I work.
Yeah.
Like, outside of work and getting things done outside of work. Because I'm like, okay, I have a limited amount of time to do this, so I'm going to make sure I get it done. It's like, if you know that paper's due tomorrow, I'm probably going to wait till 8 p.m., but I'm going to type it up and get it submitted to whatever online by 11:59.
Yeah, I feel like definitely by the end of the day, it's like, I'm like, all right, well, I got this done, this done, this done, this done, and it's like a nice, like, second of being like, all right, it's all done, I did it all, that was great, it was stamped out as a successful day.
And I'm kind of like the king of procrastination with, like, running. If you look back, whenever I worked overnights on my days off, there were hundreds of runs that I would start after 11:55 p.m. Because my rule's always been whatever day I start the run on's what day that run counts for.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd put my shoes on, 11:55, get out the door, 11:59, start my watch, get my run in.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I do appreciate is, like, neither of us are big morning runners.
No.
Especially, like, on the weekend. Like, we are not the couple that is up at 7 a.m. running. Today we were, which was, like, honestly a rarity for us.
Yeah,
I was
very
like,
rare.
wow, a morning run on the weekend? This happens very few and far between. Most times on the weekend, we sort of run between, like, 3 and 5.
Yeah, which might be something I feel better once I get my run in for the day. Like,
Yeah.
that's like, I'm not worrying about that.
Yeah, true.
I think makes things a bit less stressful, so it might be something we work on in the future and stuff. But
Yeah.
even if you do sleep in, just doing it before we eat or
everything
whatever
else,
you can
yeah.
eat. I don't really usually eat before a run, but
No, you never. You have Mike and Ike's before you run. That's about it.
I do. But on Sundays, I feel like it's hard because church starts at 10, so we'd have to get
Yeah.
up pretty early if we want to
Yeah.
run and get 10 miles in before
True.
work. But whatever works for you. Everyone's completely
Yeah,
different. Some people, like my buddy Taylor, shout out, he runs a ton of miles, but 99% of them are before the sun comes up.
Literally.
Because that works with him and his schedule. So.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm just waking up and Taylor's got 10 miles done already.
Yeah. So go ahead and put that in the comments. How do you balance running, your mileage in life, relationships, everything? What's your go-to? Are you super structured, or do you just fit it in where you can fit it in?
And do you like morning runs or evening runs? I do think that I feel better, usually physically, during a morning run. But I just am like, why? Especially now that it's been so cold, I'm like, I could run now, or like in the morning when it's 10 degrees, or I could run at 4 when it's 28 degrees. Which one am I going to pick? So that's been like slacking me a little bit. Like I've slacked off a little bit there. Still get the miles in, but you know, at what cost, I don't know. Less laundry is what I convince myself. Oh, you know, if I'm going to change 3 times today, I'll just, you know, I'll only dirty 1 pair of running clothes and 5 layers to go on top of that. So, because come on, Punxsutawney Phil just had to not see a shadow. I don't know, whatever it was. We have 6
I think
more
if they
weeks
see their shadow, it's more winter. Could be
Oh,
wrong
really?
on that. Don't fact check me.
Okay. Or
And if you're
someone
not
fact-check
from
me.
the Pennsylvania/Midwest area and you have a different groundhog that you go off of,
I don't think it's a universal thing.
are they all
Well,
called Punxsutawney Phil?
No, he's the only one.
I'm pretty sure there's like 14 other
No
ones.
way. That's news to me.
1 second. So yeah, after a quick Google search, there are a bunch of other groundhogs that make predictions on the weather on Groundhog's Day, but
darn.
our regional specific one is Puxatawny Phil.
Well, no, one of those is Corryville, PA, which is like close to where my parents live. So I don't know. I feel like the Punxsutawney Phil would just be like for this area, but maybe not. Maybe that's far enough away. Who knows? So interesting, though. Can we take whatever groundhog said? More summer, less winter. Can we say that we claim that one?
We can. You can identify with whatever groundhog you want to identify with.
Okay, I need to look up the names one more time. October Octavia. Sounds great.
Okay. I like that.
Amazing.
So, what are some ways that you avoid burnout since a lot of their days are structured the same way?
Well, my thing right now is I'm trying to make my runs loops because that's been making it less daunting to go run like 10 miles after work. I'm like, I'll see which roads I can connect and like see what mileage I get. You know, it's kind of breaking it up. I mean, we've been also doing speed work again, which like has been a nice like change of pace, literally and metaphorically. Just to like have something else in the week and something else to like, I don't know, look forward to. Although that 200-meter track is like really messing me up, but that's okay. It's still fun to go out there and like you're running with other people, which is nice. I've been running with a couple like other friends. Well, no, sorry, one other friend in the area, so that's also been a nice change of pace. Not that I don't love running 99% of my miles with you, because I do, and it's great. But you know, change of pace.
Liv and I also see each other a lot every single day, so like a lot of times there's not a lot for us to talk about on our runs because like we're always together and we're always texting throughout the day as well. So it's not like there's a bunch that is new to talk about. So that's why it's nice running with other people. Sometimes I run with my buddy Nick a couple times a week. Like we've been running together like 6-7 months, but like we don't talk outside of running very often. So we always have something to talk about or something to debate or like. That's a good time. So running with people definitely helps avoid burnout.
Yeah.
Running different routes, that's cool that you like to do that.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at running the same route every day. It's just kind of my jam.
Well, because I was doing this 1 mile loop around the house, and I thought that I was going to, like, run out in front of a car to get out of it because I was so tired of running the same loop. Because the bike path has just been iced, and, like, I don't like to run on it when it's dark or anything, so it's been a little challenging, but I found some nicer areas that I can like run through and loop through that I'm like, all right, let's see which way this goes. And especially now that it's getting lighter out, like after 5:30, that's also been like a huge pro. I mean, I forget when we jump back or something. I think it's in like March, but I don't think that'll affect. I don't know. I always forget how those things work. I feel like I should know by now.
I think you lose an hour of sleep.
But it's like it's darker in the morning again. Okay.
I believe so.
And if I'm running in the morning, I expect that it's going to be dark. I just expect that the mornings are dark. So.
That's fair. Any other ways you avoid burnout?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think listening to different things also helps. I think, like, not having, like, being injury-free and, like, keeping my body strong has, like, helps me continue going. And, like, setting new goals also I feel like it's been a huge thing for me to, like, be like, all right, well, yeah, you might not want to do this run. Also, I'd say like 90% of my runs I don't want to go on.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay. I know I'm going to go out and do it. I know what's going to happen. But I'm like, oh, man.
Hardest step's the first one.
Hardest step's the first one. Hardest step's the putting on the gloves and the buff and the fleece line leggings and then the layers. But once you get out there, you're like, all right, well, the first mile is actually the worst usually. Well, I guess it depends on the day. But, you know.
My breathing's always terrible, like the first couple miles of any race. Like I sound like I'm gonna die no matter what pace I'm going.
Awesome. I think that's like the adrenaline almost. Or like the excitement of the race. Like I always feel like my heart rate is higher at the start of a race because like it's all the excitement and all the people around and I'm like, all right, it's time to do this really hard thing. Great, awesome, haha, it's here. Haha, I'll be on here for X amount of hours.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to, like, have some burnout sometimes. Sometimes I think you need to, how they say, keep the pilot light lit, as Dustin Wilgoss would say.
Okay.
It's like, hey, it's going to suck sometimes. You're not going to want to do those things. You're not so excited about a race or something coming up. But if you continue to run during your off season or whatever, whenever you decide that, oh, I want to do this race, it's going to be so much easier to get back into that peak shape for that race or more comfortable shape. Or like if you're really big into lifting and then like you don't love it for a while. If you continue to lift 2 days a week, you're not going to lose a ton of strength.
Yeah.
And then whenever you want to get really back into it, like you're still easily able to do that.
Yeah, I feel like with running, I've not really experienced like a huge burnout period, I think, because I've just not been doing it long enough at the distance and mileage that I have been. So, I don't know, like it took a little bit of an off season or like some weeks that were like lower mileage between Devil Dog and like the holidays. But like now we're just kind of back in it. So I was like, oh, I think I just had like some 50-minute weeks. I think the week after Devil Dog was in the 30s though. I was like, oh, you did it. You can relax a little.
Yeah. And that's kind of been my thing the last 2 years after running a bunch of races in the summer and them going super well and me being stressed out before them and like putting in that much effort during them. I just kind of took it easy during the winter both years, which I'll cut that shorter next year. I don't want to have that much downtime, and I'll be doing a race later in the year this year than last year. But
that's true.
I just kept running at least 70 miles a week, even during that. Like kept that as like my minimum.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people worry about like, oh, the maximum. I'm going to work up to this and stuff, and I just think overall your blocks of mileage are more important than that one peak week.
Yeah, I think your base is so important, and and why so many people get injured is because they have no base, or like they haven't had their base like developed yet, and they just keep adding and adding and adding. Like been there, done that. It's really, truly not the way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, trying to think of any other things that we do. If I have a really good audiobook, then like I'm more excited to go on my run. But Onyx Storm did not live up to the hype. I was not excited to go on any of my runs while listening to it. Real bummer. So here's hoping that I find something a little better to excite me on some of my runs in the next couple weeks. Yeah. And going from there.
Have you ever read the book Where the Red Fern Grows?
I honestly don't think so.
It's a banger.
Okay. How long is it?
Not very long, probably compared to those chapter books you listen to.
I'm going to listen to it and be like, Heath, I'm not even a mile in and it's over. And you're going to be like, well, I didn't say it was long.
I did say it wasn't a chapter book.
We did get a rather deep question from Instagram talking about if we think that there's a correlation between trauma and addiction and running or ultra running. So I wanted to see your take on that.
Yeah, and we kind of touched base on this a little bit earlier whenever we first read it, and I had an interesting experience when I paced the Glass City Marathon. It was like 25 and a half miles in, and there's someone like holding up a beer, like trying to give somebody, and the one guy's like, oh no, I've been sober for like 5 years, like, and like multiple other people around him were like, oh, I've been sober for so many years, and the one dude had his coin on him from like AA.
Oh, no way.
And I feel like there's a lot of people in the running community that have struggled with addiction of some kind in their life, or some like deep embedded trauma in their life. I don't know about the people that you've talked to and stuff, if you've seen kind of that correlation as well, but I've definitely seen that.
I feel like it makes sense, I mean, I feel like Sally McRae talks about it all the time, like she had a really like horrific upbringing almost, at least with her dad, and that she talked about it in her book. And I think that she found running as like a solace of like a place that she can dig deeper and find out more about herself. So I feel like there's definitely people out there that have that experience as well.
And I think part of it is like, hey, if you have addictive tendencies, that running is something you can be addicted to. Yeah. And maybe it's a healthier addiction than a lot of things that you can be addicted to, for sure. Or people with like lifting and things as well, like they need something to fill that void, whether it was they were doing alcohol or drugs or something before. Like you have more time now, like there's something that was kind of your go-to, and then they change it to something more positive, like running. And I personally have very addictive tendencies. That's why like I've never wanted to touch a drug in my life, because I'm like, I'll probably become addicted.
That's good to
Yeah,
know.
and I feel like probably running is kind of one of my quote unquote addictions.
Yeah.
It's like something that I do and go back to and stuff, and like don't want to live without.
Yeah.
Almost. I feel like the word addiction is very powerful,
I think
though.
so
So like
too, yeah.
calling something like running every day an addiction can kind of take away from people who are actually
Yeah, true.
addicted to things. So
Yeah, my dad's always like, "Oh, it could be worse, Brenda. Like, she's just running a lot of miles. Like, she
mhm.
could be addicted to something." Although they do say, like, you're just addicted to running. And I'm like, I don't know if it's like that. It's just something that I enjoy to do and
Mhm.
force myself to do and want to see what I can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation there for sure.
I would agree.
I'm trying to think of, like, the people that I've talked to during ultras. And, like, I feel like most of them are, like, your stereotypical, like, middle-aged man that I've ran with quite a few guys that are like, I signed up for this race because the buckle was cool. And I was like, you know what? That's awesome. If
Yeah.
that's why you want to do this, hey, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah, and I was talking to one of the guys who ran with today about it, and I feel like one of the reasons why ultra running's kind of becoming a bit more mainstream. It's not mainstream, but like it's becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of that is like a lot of us live cushy lives where we're
Correct.
not doing physically hard things
Yeah.
in manual labor as work, or maybe it is we need something hard in our life to do, and that's
Yeah.
something that ultra running can be for people, like
Yeah.
or doing a marathon, or just in general, it's something that's tough no
Yeah.
matter what. Like running 100 miles is tough for literally anybody. It doesn't even matter if you're the best person in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's still a challenge to run 100 miles.
Yeah. I like, especially during my first 100, I like any person that I linked up with, I was like, why do you do this? Why do you keep coming back to this? And they're like, I live such like a comfortable life. Like it makes me appreciate the things I have in life so much more because it forces me to be uncomfortable and do uncomfortable things that like they're like if this is the only like quote unquote bad thing I have going on in my life, like that I'm suffering through the night at a race, like can I really complain? And I'm like, no, like
Yeah.
that's very true.
Yeah, I just kind of think of like the movie Wall-E.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Yeah, it's like all the people that are up in space and like they're in the chairs
Yeah.
and they're just all morbidly obese and just eating, getting anything they want, like all
Wild
that
movie.
satisfaction. Like
Yeah.
I feel like we can get easy satisfaction now
Correct,
in
yeah.
life, like a lot of people can, and like ultra running something that you really have to earn and work
Yeah.
for, and you feel very accomplished after because you
Yeah.
had to put in so much work beforehand and then
Correct.
during the race itself to kind of get to that finish line.
Yeah. Like the confidence that I feel like I have now because I'm like, what? Like I've ran quote unquote run 100 miles. Like I feel like what can't my body do almost like
Yeah.
which like well, I know I'm really tough. So
You are very
pros
tough, yeah.
and cons to doing all that because I'm like that guy on the street. I could probably beat him up, but he's like, no, Olivia, you probably can't. But in my head, I can. So thanks, ultra running.
Your confidence is good and bad. Yeah.
The lighter. Oh, if you have something else.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say with like the running thing, you're like, I ran 100 miles. Like I saw someone on Instagram, it was like someone ran like 100-mile race, and like one of the top comments was like, well, didn't actually run it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, they probably walk throughout. It's impossible for someone to actually run 100 miles, which it's not. Like,
yeah, that's true.
my Eagle Up 100, I ran all but like 20 steps of it when walking out
Yeah.
of like an aid station. Like humans can run 100
Yeah.
miles, but
That's
like
funny.
even like I think if you do a 100-mile race, like it's still considered running. Like
Okay.
I think people gatekeep and are like, oh well, if it's not faster than this pace, like then it's not a run. It's like I don't know where my cutoff is on that, and I don't know if there is a cutoff on that. Like if you're doing 100 miles, like it's awesome.
Yeah, so
Doing a marathon, that's awesome. Like
getting it done.
yeah, not going deep in the technicalities on what quote unquote a run is.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, well, on a lighter note, we did have one of your buddies ask if we would ever do a backyard ultra or a 24-hour or 100+ mile race. So, what do you think?
Probably yes, yes, and yes at
Yeah,
some point.
fair.
Backyards, I don't know if those would really be my jam. I'm good if I just continue to go. I don't
Yeah.
spend much time at aid stations, so I don't think I'd be amazing at that. I think I'd like cramp up if I really stopped for so much time. But there's a lot of strategies behind backyards, which I kind of like the idea of
That's
that.
fair.
At some point, I'm sure I'll be convinced to do one.
We're doing one. What do you mean?
We are doing one.
We're
with
doing
Andy
one in
Boyd.
April.
Yep.
I was like, you say this as though we don't have one on the calendar.
Yeah, we do have one on the calendar, just a local one hosted by a friend.
Yeah.
We
have to mail in the papers for that, too.
Do we have to mail in papers?
We have to mail in papers for it.
That's cool.
Yeah. I was like, I like it. I gotta find a printer.
You got it.
Yeah, it's
we have a printer.
I know, I've just never used it.
I got you. But yeah, 200-mile race or over 100 miles. Yeah, at some point.
Yeah.
Probably. It's not on my bingo card for
this year.
2025, but
or 2026, honestly.
Yeah.
200 mile, yeah, at some point. That's like when I peak at like 42. You know,
it's your midlife crisis.
Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah. And then 24-hour race. Yeah, at some point I'll do it. Like,
yeah.
I think it'd be cool to try to go for like the 24-hour team. I think you have to get like 170 miles or something. So you're moving, but I think it's
170.
Yeah, somewhere I think 160s, 170s can usually qualify you for like the U.S. team.
Okay.
Actually, it's probably gonna be more than that now since ultra running is becoming more popular and stuff.
More mainstream.
More mainstream.
That's true.
How about you?
I mean, I plan to do a 24-hour that will hopefully get me over 100 miles. Not by much, but that would be cool if it did.
It would be cool.
So we'll see. And then we're doing a backyard in April. 2 weeks after the 24-hour, so we'll see how long I last.
You'll be fine.
I'm telling myself I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm just going to take it real slow until I can't anymore. And then I'll be like, go, Heath. Yay. Just kidding, I'm going to beat you. Ha.
You might.
Honestly, yeah. Only because of the stopping. You're going to be like, why am I sitting down? Why did I run the first lap in 30 minutes? What am I going to do for this
I'm
next
also
30
soft
minutes?
and I don't want to be up for more than 26 hours. Like, I want to take a nap. Which I guess you can if you run some fast ones and stuff. But I get cranky when I'm tired, I'm going to be honest.
You do. This is true.
I don't want to be awake anymore. So...
and then 200 miles at some point, or like something bigger at some point, but I just get to the end of 100 miles and feel so wrecked that I don't know how to go further.
It's like the 10th time I've said this on the podcast too, but just so much money to go out west to do like a 200 miler and stuff. Like, that's a lot of investment
it is.
of capital along with time and
time and money. And
that's a lot. So a couple years down the road, I feel like that's something I'll schedule more than a year out.
Oh yeah, that's smart. For sure. Yeah, true. So but that's I think all we have for this week.
I said there was one more. No,
those we had two questions. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Okay. Awesome. So any other questions that you have for us for future episodes?
Drop in the comments, as Heath says.
Drop in the comments.
Yeah. Perfect. And we'll catch you next week.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your week.